Power BI can be very confusing if you're new to Power BI, and in this video we're going to take a look at Power BI and how you can get started making your first dashboard. The best part is you can follow along with me. There's some files to download, and we will also take a look at how to build a first dashboard in Power BI. Once you import your data, you can start to visualize your data, which is one of the capabilities of Power BI. So this is for newcomers to Power BI. We're going to show you how to make that first dashboard, connect to your data, and visualize a Power BI data set. Let's go to Power BI. In this Power BI Getting Started video, we are going to be using Power BI Desktop, which is free for all users. From your search bar, type in Microsoft Power BI. This will give you the Microsoft Power BI website. When you select the Power BI website, next you will go to the products screen. From the products, we have Power BI, and the submenu is Desktop. Desktop is the one we want to select. Desktop allows us to download the Power BI desktop version, and this does update. So every month or every 30-40 days, you're going to want to update to the current version of Power BI Desktop. Next, once you download Power BI Desktop, there's two versions. You can either download now or you can choose the advanced download options, which allows you to pick the version and see the latest version of Power BI. Once you download, then we will create our first Power BI dashboard. It's go time in Power BI. The actual fun starts to begin. When you open up your Power BI desktop version, you're going to see a couple of different options. One of the things with Power BI is that the most important thing you need is data. And remember, you can download files and follow along. Just look for them in the description. The first thing at the top, you notice it says select a data source or start with a blank report. And then you can also watch some tutorials on Power BI. If you've already opened up other files in Power BI, those will come down below. But we want to start from scratch, so we are going to choose a blank report. And now we are in Power BI. Congratulations. You have downloaded Power BI. You have opened up your Power BI desktop application. Since Power BI is data-driven, it's always going to ask you when you start a new report to add data to your report. And you can either import from Excel, SQL Server, paste into a blank table, or you can use some sample data. In this video, this is a getting started with Power BI. I do want to introduce you. This screen is known as the report view. It's the first view up here. If you hover your cursor over that, the report view icon will come up. And that is the basic report view. Now, there's two ways you can get data, and there's multiple data sources you can get. So if you choose Get Data, you can choose from different common data sources like Excel Workbook. You can choose from a text CSV. You can get data from the web. You can make your own blank query. In this video, we are going to use Excel workbooks. So there's two ways to do that. You can choose Excel Workbook from the Get Data option. That will bring up the Excel workbook. Or from the Add Data to Your Report, you can import data from Excel. Now, we are going to be importing two files. One is a sales file. The second Excel file is a customer data file. So when we choose import data from Excel, in the description, you can download the files and follow along. We have an Excel file, and we also have a CSV file. The first file is the Excel file, the customer data file. If you have saved them to your hard drive, you select the customer data, you select Open. Next, we will connect to the data. This Excel file contains 4 tables. We have a customer table, and the blue table indicates that it's a table in Excel. When we select that, you get a preview of that table. These are the columns in that table. When we select date, then we get a preview of the dates. Now, this calendar is for 2023 and 2024. When you look at the D product table, and then you look at the D sales rep table, you also have that as our 4 files. Next, you're going to transform that data to bring in the Power Query Editor. Now, I do have videos up on the Power Query Editor. We currently have the 4 queries: customer, date, product, and sales rep. That is the Excel table. One of the advantages of Power BI is you can bring in multiple types of files. We are now going to select new source. And from this new source, we want to select a text CSV file, which are comma delimited. When we go to the comma delimited files, we have a sales file. When we select sales and open that, we now have our 5th table in there. This one is called sales. There is a preview. It's based on 200 rows. It's comma delimited. We are going to select OK. Now we have our 5 tables. They are called queries. And since we have not loaded this data into Power BI, we now want to download and load this data into Power BI by selecting Close and Apply. We are not going to make any changes inside Power Query. When we select Close and Apply, you'll notice that we get a loading of the data into the Power BI report view. Depending on how big the files are, that will determine how long it takes to download that data. We have the data table loaded, and now inside your report view, if you notice on the right-hand side, we have a data tab. And the data tab contains our customer table, the date table, product table, sales rep, and sales. Those are the 5 files that we just imported by getting data from Excel and CSV. Next, in order to create our visuals, we need to build our data model. And a data model is just the relationships, because right now these are individual tables. If you select customer and go to the data view, this little table view, this will show you the raw data, but it doesn't have any relationship. So if you've never worked with relationships, that is one of the advantages of using Power BI. We have this 3rd view called the model view. Now we are going to go into the model view and create our relationships. And we're going to use this by connecting the files. So the sales table is what's known as our fact table. There's lots of sales. There's going to be a file with hundreds of thousands of rows of sales. And your fact tables are long and narrow. Meanwhile, your lookup tables are narrower and they don't contain any duplicates. So now we just need to create our relationships. From the customer table, we have a customer ID. We are going to bring this down to customer ID in the sales table. This is going to create a one-to-many relationship. You have the customer ID from the customer table to the sales table, and we hit save. Now we have a relationship. Now we're going to do the same thing with product ID. We're going to bring product ID by dragging it down to the product ID table. It's going to ask you about your new relationships. You're going to confirm product ID with product ID, and Power BI is helping you with this. They know that when you selected that table and you brought it to the sales table, it's a one-to-many relationship. Save that one. Next, we have the sales date table. This allows us to use time intelligence in Power BI and do things like total sales, year-over-year sales, which we'll show you how to do that in other videos. But now we just need to bring our date down to date. Again, it's going to ask for the date table to the sales table. We have date here. We have date there. That's a match. And then our final match is going to be the sales rep. And then we're going to bring the sales rep to the sales rep ID. Sales rep ID to sales rep ID. It asks you to confirm this new relationship, and then we're going to select that to save it. So now we have our relationship. This is called a data model. And you always want to create your data model inside right after you've imported your data. When you go back to the report view, your data that you imported is still inside these tables. And if you click the down arrow button, all of the different data columns will show up. And if you close that, you can select product and bring those different items. If you select product here, and now we move to the table view, we can actually see the raw data from the product table. So this is what's called the data model view, and it's what brings out the power in Power BI. So now we're just about ready to start building our visuals and creating our first dashboard. You ready to create your first dashboard in Power BI? We're going to create a report. The first thing you do in Power BI to create a report is we need to add a visual. There's two different areas you can add a visual. From the home menu, you can select your different visuals at the top of the screen. Then on the right-hand side, we also can build a different visual. So we are going to select a clustered column chart. And a clustered column chart, when you select this, a visual appears, but it does not have anything inside this visual. Now we need to populate it, and we want to ask this data set. Remember, when you're building reports and dashboards, all you're trying to do is just visualize different questions. So for this one, we want to know how many units have been sold by the different products. When we select this little icon, we can now add data to our visual. With this visual selected, and you see these little circles around, that means that visual is selected. We first will select units. Now we see all of the units on the y-axis. Next, we are going to select the product. Now we have all of our different products. So this grocery store sells 5 different types of products. And now we already know the answer to our question. Bananas sold the most products in this product set. And corn sold the least amount of units, total units sold in this data set. So that is an answer. Now, what we would want to do now is we can select the formatting function, and we're going to change the title to product unit sales. Now we have changed the title, and we can resize this visual by selecting the corner of the visual. And if we move it up, it makes it smaller. If we move it down, it makes it bigger. So that is our first visual, product unit sales. Building a report and dashboard is a little bit of art and science. Remember, you're trying to answer business questions. So even though this chart now tells us that we sold bananas the most and corn the least, if somebody was using this chart, a member of your executive team, they may want to ask the question, well, what did we sell more of in 2024? And what did we sell more of in 2023? And that is a good question. So now what we want to do is add a slicer. From the home menu, you have all of your different icons, and this little funnel icon is called a slicer. We're going to select an area that's open on the dashboard, select slicer. Next, we're going to move this visual up here. And if we go to our slicer options, we can add the data. And we want to add in the year because we want to know which items we sold more of the product by year. Now, when we select the year, it comes up with this icon between. And what we do is we have different slicer settings that if you select the format and you select the build, we are now going to select the format and select slicer settings. And we have different options. We can choose a vertical list. We can choose a drop down and allows you to choose which one. We can also choose between, which is the default option. We are going to choose a tile. I like this tile. We are now going to resize this a little bit. And we can make the numbers bigger. If you go to, it's currently in 10-point font, we will change this to a 16-point font. So now we can resize this slicer, and this is connected to that visual. So if I want to see what we sold more of in 2023, if the user selects 2023, now we see in 2023, we sold the most tomatoes. In 2024, we sold more bananas. So that is adding a slicer to further define what we want to look for to answer our business questions. We have the start of our report. We can slice it now by years, and we know how many units have been sold by product, but maybe we want to analyze total sales, and we also want to see which of our sales reps have the most total sales. Now, one of the things as a data analyst, you always want to know your data. So in this data set, we know that we have a product table. If we go to the table view, we can see that each unit cost $15.40 for tomatoes, $17.25 for corn. If we go back to our sales table, we know how many units we sold. But now we need to create a total sales measure. And when you are in Power BI, rather than using formulas, you use what's called DAX. And what this allows you to do is create formulas so that you can do more advanced writing of formulas than you can do in DAX. And with the relationship model, you can start to see more trends in your data. So from the sales table, we are going to create a new measure. We're going to create one measure, and this is going to be total sales. We're going to type in total sales, and it equals, and this is a DAX function called SumX. I have other videos on how to use sum and SumX and how to write DAX. But for this beginner's tutorial, we're going to write one DAX measure. And SumX, when you hit tab, if you follow your IntelliSense, it requires a table. The table, once you have the table identified, which is going to be sales. So when we select sales, that will be the sales table. Next, what we want to do is determine the expression, And I'm going to make this, remember for this video, this is a beginning Power BI video, your first dashboard. We are not going to consider too much time on DAX. I do have other videos on DAX. We'll be doing more videos on how to learn DAX, which is really the power behind Power BI. But we are going to work with what's called a SumX, and then we're going to use the sales. And from the sales table, we need to identify which column. So we want the sales units. And then we want to take the sales units and times it by the related column. Remember, we have a relationship with the sales table and the product table. So when we go D-product, we have the price in the product table. And this is going to take the price in the product table times the product ID and times it all into one formula. Now we're going to close this out with two parentheses. So now we have a total sales measure that will allow us to complete our dashboard. We're going to look at sales by our region, and then we're going to look at sales by our sales reps. When you hit enter, you've created the total sales measure. And this is listed under the sales table. You see total sales. Now we need to do just one thing for formatting. Right now this is formatted as a whole number, but we want to add the values in commas as 1,000 separator. So we change that to 1,000 separator. Since these sales are in US currency, we're going to change this to English United States to reflect total sales. Now we want to know total sales. We have the slicer for year. If we go back to our home setting, we can bring in what's called a card. It's this little 1, 2, 3 symbol, and we can see total sales. When we select a blank area on the card, on the report, we select a card. Now we have a card visual. If I select total sales from the measure we created, we now see 2 million in sales for 2024. We also see 2 million for 2023, but we want to have this a little more precise for the user. So we're going to go to the format settings, and for the values, we are going to select the total sales, and for the call out value, it's currently set to auto. We are going to set this for none. When we select none, we see that we have $2,246,000 in sales. And if we want to select to the thousands, we can do that. So now we see we have 2,246,000 in 2023. We have 2,358,000 in 2024. If we unselect everything, we have a total of 4 million in sales. So now we're starting to build out our dashboard. We've got the product sales and we've got the units. We have our slicer by year. Now a CEO or somebody in your analytics department may want to see which sales reps are producing the most sales. So the final chart we're going to make here is we're going to select the table icon. And it's this little, it looks like an Excel table. You select that. Next, we're going to bring in from the data, we're going to bring in our different sales reps. So now we've got our 5 different sales reps, and we are going to bring in total sales. So now we can see that our sales rep, Ed Brist, had 990,000 in sales. Now, if we want to see this by highest to lowest, if you select the more options, we can sort by total sales. And this will bring it from the high sales to the lowest sales. It still adds up to 4,604,000, but now we can break it down by highest to lowest. So now our sales dashboard is starting to come along. The final thing we're going to want to do is a title. From the title, we're going to select Insert, and we're going to select a text box. And we are going to call this Sales Dashboard. We are going to highlight the text. We're going to make this 20-point font and bold. Now we can move this by selecting on this. We are going to move the sales dashboard up to the top left. So now we're starting to build out our sales dashboard. The final visual we're going to show you in this tutorial, getting started with Power BI. Remember, you can download the files in the description below. This is a beginner's guide, your first dashboard. We've got a title. We have added a card. We have added a slicer. Next, we're going to take a look at our visual gallery from the home menu. And now we want to add a clustered bar chart because we want to see which regions have the most sales. So we're going to select region and we're going to select total sales. And now we see that our West region in 2024, since that's selected, has the most sales. If we select 2023, we see the South had the most sales. And in 2024, the West had the total sales. Now that is very close. So what you may want to do is from the format settings, we can look at the visual and we can change some of our setting categories. And one of the things we want to do is add data labels. So now we have the amount because you can see the difference. And for the data labels, we are going to show the different options. You can have a title. This is currently total sales by region. That's the default title. If we want to turn this on, we can name this. If we turn this on, we can either define a region. Now we've got total sales into the title. So depending on how you want to build out your data labels, you can choose to select the different total sales by region. So that is how we build out our first dashboard, getting started in Power BI. I highly recommend my Marketing Analyst in a Day video. You can follow along in that. You'll learn more DAX. You'll learn more about building out visuals. If you click on the link here above, you can see the Marketing Analyst in a Day dashboard course, and that one will walk you through a more advanced version of Power BI and getting started with your first dashboards in Power BI. I hope you're excited to get started in Power BI. What we tried to show you in this video was how to create your first dashboard in Power BI. You can do it as simple as 20 to 25 minutes. You can import your data. And remember, the process for all of your projects in Power BI are the same. First off, you want to import your data. Then you want to create your relationships. Then you want to start to build out your report and look at it from how a user would want to use Power BI. I hope you enjoyed this getting started in Power BI video. Please help along by sharing, liking, and subscribing this video. If you can like and subscribe, that'll get more people to see this video. And also, leave a comment. What type of videos do you want to see? What are some of the next concepts you want to learn in Power BI as we continue? Remember, on this channel, I do have some more videos on DAX and on visualizations, but Power BI definitely has a lot of capabilities, and you can start very simple with simple dashboards and then build out your data models in Power BI. Like, share, and subscribe as we continue to learn Power BI.